All right. Government shutdown.
All
How'd that
right, go.
affect homeowner insurance, flood insurance?
Yeah, government shutdown. All right, so this is it's almost impossible to say how long this is going to go on. We had once where I don't remember if it was a couple years ago or maybe, but it went for like 30 days. And so I've been researching a little bit. I've been trying to look and see. I don't think it'll go 30 days, just in my opinion. What they're holding on is stuff that's relatively hopefully simple to solve. But even if this goes on for like 2 weeks, we cannot write a new NFIP policy. And that for homes that are on the water where typically NFIP is the best rate, it makes it a little tougher. Now, the one thing we may be able to do is if you're doing an assumption on a new purchase, if the new owner or the new buyer, if the buyer assumes the owner's policy midterm, so not a new policy, but a midterm assumption, and makes no changes at all, we may be able to get those through. But other than that, we can't make changes, new policies. NFIP is just, it's locked down for now. But the good news is there are several private market carriers that have just come available over the last year or so. And many of them are rating really, really competitive, if not better than NFIP and on AE flood zones. And honestly, more and more, I'm finding myself not writing NFIP on newer homes or on newer policies. If you have an older policy that you can assume, it's always going to be the best rate. Those rates that are grandfathered in are the best. But if you're writing a new policy, I'm finding myself writing a lot of private market here lately because they're coming in very competitive, and there's a lot of benefits to them as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I've had some people complimenting you guys for, they gave you the NFIP, the seller's NFIP policy, and you were able to do better. You also had one
Yeah.
where I think it was USAA was the seller's current policy. It was NFIP, but it was through
Hmm.
USAA. And I guess USAA wouldn't allow the buyer to assume the seller's policy, even though it was NFIP. And you were
Mm.
able to do something on the back end to basically, I don't know if you call it grandfather in or honor what the NFIP policy was
Yeah.
you could probably say it better than me. Or
Yeah, well,
what?
yeah, no, I remember that one actually. So yeah, there's a couple different ways to assume a policy. You can assume it midterm, which means you just take on their policy for the remaining amount. So if you're buying the home in June, but that current policy is good till November, you take it on and you have it until November, and then you renew off that policy. That's one way of doing it. So that's the way that I typically try to avoid. That's kind of the one I don't do as often. Now, the one that I like the best is when you assume it as starting a new policy. So you assume the policy, you basically start it as it's a brand new policy and you're in the buyer's name, but you keep the rate. And so they keep the rating. You can change the coverages, you can adjust it how you want it, but the rating stays the same. And then you're able to start that policy for 1 year locked in.
Okay. Why do some insurance companies require the flood insurance to be paid prior to closing and some don't?
I know it just depends on the carrier. So typically with NFIP, it's not we can pay it. We don't have to pay it right at. But there are several private carriers that require payment at the time of bind, and so I really don't know why some do and some don't. But with private carriers, they kind of are able to make their own rules on the payment. So it really just depends on the carrier that comes back.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody have any questions based on what Matt was talking about with flood insurance, government shutdown, anything like that?
I have a question about flood insurance. So I always recommend my buyers to get flood insurance, even if they're not on a flood zone, because at some point, if they get rezoned, then they already have the policy in place. Will the policy increase if the house changes the zoning?
So with NFIP, and I believe I would say I'm pretty sure, but not certain. But with NFIP, those rates are grandfathered in. So if you're in an X zone and they rezone you and put you in an AE zone, as long as you keep that policy, that rate shouldn't change. Those are grandfathered rates. So that's where NFIP on an X zone could be beneficial. Now, with a private market carrier, I would say most of them probably will change at renewal because they're going to re-rate. They're going to re-rate at renewals. But again, it's very carrier dependent. And if you have someone that has a flood or you're recommending a flood policy, the carrier option is going to be really important with an X zone policy. Because we'd be able to find out like for sure, like Neptune's a really big private carrier. We'd be able to reach out to Neptune and ask them, hey, this is right on the edge of AE. If it changes, would the rate change, and find out for them.
Okay, so I,
Yeah.
I should recommend then to find a flood insurance that is assumable.
Yeah.
Because
So
I think there's a benefit when they sell the house in the future, then, and this saved a deal for me. The house the current owner paid about $3,000, and when the buyer came to quote, the insurance was like $10,000 a new
Yeah.
one. So having that NFIP saved the deal.
Yeah, that is the one big plus of NFIP. That's other than that, I'm not the biggest fan of NFIP, but the one big plus of NFIP is that assumable policy. And the longer you've had it, if you've had that policy for 5-6 years, you are never going to beat that rate on a new quote. So yeah,
And being grandfathered in, does it still, go up slightly every year till it gets to its like certain threshold, or do you keep a very similar rate year over year?
Yeah, the rate's almost always going to increase every year, but it's capped. So whereas if I wrote a new policy for someone on the water right now, it's $7,000, like she was just mentioning. That your policy's $3,000 because it only went up by maybe $80 on a year. Whereas if you write a new policy, the difference in price is $2,000. So yeah, it's going to be capped. So it's never going to get as high as it would. I think so. I think it's very dependent on the area elevation, all the analytics that go into it. But from what I see year over year, it's typically like with under $100 with most policies, like $80, $60. So there's got to be some analytics to how much it increases, but it's always very little, if you row a new one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Is there a percentage of the amount it can increase per year?
Yeah, so private market carriers have a lot of benefits, but the NFIP with the grandfathered in rate is such a great thing because the rate that you're getting right now, 3-4 years from now, we don't know what flood rates are going to look like. They could double. Who knows? So you're grandfathering that rate, and rates could go down in a couple of years if we avoid some hurricanes and we have a couple nice seasons here of nothing too bad. They could start to go down a little bit, but just having that option is really, really nice.
I was just saying, I was thinking yesterday, it'll be nice when October's over because then we don't have to think about the storms.
We're almost there. We're almost there.
All right.
But yeah, any other questions on flood or repairs or anything like that? Roofs?
One person did ask you to share your contact info.
Yeah, you can call my direct line. If you have questions, need a quote, anything like that, I'm always happy to help. So my direct line is 727-306-3321. And that comes right to my desk, right to my phone. Happy to help. Like I said, with the private market carriers that are coming back, we're sending out flood quotes that are. I've had people over the last couple of weeks reaching out to me just saying, how is this? I haven't got anything as cheap as this. We have some amazing private flood carriers right now, and it's really looking good. So if you have one that you're stuck on or it's really high and you're having problems, send it over. Let me take a look at it.
Hi, I do have a question in reference to the NFIP. Given that it's assumable to the buyer or it comes with contingencies?
Yeah, good morning. So any NFIP policy, whether it's through Progressive ASI, Right Flood, Bankers, any NFIP policy is assumable. It has an NFIP specific number and you can assume it. The only time you have to go direct NFIP and it becomes a little bit more of a different process is if it's a severe repetitive loss NFIP. Then it becomes a little like it's had multiple floods over the last couple of years. But any NFIP is assumable. There's really no reason it shouldn't be. Yeah.
Alrighty. Thank you.
You're welcome.